Good afternoon and welcome to Across the Fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. Each summer, Lake Champlain Sea Grant and UVM Extension host a series of Summer on the Lake educational boat trips. There are 3 trips planned this summer, and in a few minutes we'll tell you how you can take part in this one-of-a-kind cruise on Lake Champlain. Last summer, the namesake UVM's Marcelle Melosira research vessel, Marcelle Leahy, christened the vessel. This hybrid electric catamaran is a floating laboratory fitted out with cutting-edge tech to take anything from sediment samples from the bottom of the lake to IDing underwater species using echo sound technology. Across the Fence's Ben Willis charted the vessel's approach to its new home and filed this report.
We're at the Burlington waterfront at the Rubenstein Ecosystem Science Laboratory, which is at the Leahy Center for Lake Champlain. We have a brand new research vessel, the RV Marcelle Melosira. It's a 65-foot, 20 feet wide hybrid research vessel that's powered both by electricity, think of a Prius, batteries, and also diesel. It's right in alignment with UVM of trying to be more green. This vessel is one of the first, if not the first, hybrid research vessels in the US. So it's pretty cutting edge stuff going on here. This has been in the plans for 5 years or so. The boat has been under construction for over 2 years, and we finally got it on Sunday.
The Marcelle Melosira began its journey on July 21st in Long Island Sound. Soon it was heading north up the Hudson River towards its final destination, Lake Champlain. But there were concerns that the recent flooding in the region might disrupt the research vessel's long journey. UVM's Taylor Resnick captained the ship for this multi-day voyage to Vermont.
There was a lot of uncertainty, yes. There's a lot of water in the Champlain Canal system going down into the Hudson River. There's a lot of current, a lot of debris, a lot of flotsam. We actually had to wait after Lock 3, which is in Mechanicville, New York, for the water levels to drop a little bit to get under a railroad bridge. There were a couple other close bridges as well, so it was really an awesome journey to get here.
When we arrived aboard the vessel the morning after its arrival, the excitement on board was high as the 5-year wait had come to a close.
We're really high with excitement. This is we've had a research vessel for decades, a much smaller vessel. It was 45 feet and maybe 15 feet wide, and it was limited in its size and its capabilities. This vessel is much larger. We have an actual laboratory where we can have students, we can have K through 12 students on board. They can be looking at samples in a nice sheltered environment. We can be doing wet chemistry work. We have a very large deck where we can do overboards, we can sample fish, we can sample water quality, we can launch drones.
We had to wait a while, but the wait is entirely worth it because we have an awesome vessel. We had no issues coming up here with it. It handles amazing. Its capabilities are amazing. So we're really looking forward to getting out there and doing some research.
Jason explained to us how this research vessel's innovative capabilities will allow for a new wave of fascinating research on Lake Champlain.
What are the impacts of different stressors on Lake Champlain? What does it mean for the food web? If we get quagga mussels coming in, we now have an experimental design where we can look at whether they're successful or not, depending on the conditions in each of the basins. We are doing work on forecasting cyanobacteria blooms through both limnological sampling, but also climate forecasting and kind of blending the two together. We are missing a lot of information from especially the deep parts of the lake. This boat allows us to get out to the deep areas and collect a lot of information.
The arrival of the Marcelle Melosira means a new era of discovery has begun on Lake Champlain.
Our thanks to Ben for that report from 2023. I'd like to welcome Kris Stepenuck back to our program. She is the Associate Director and Extension Program Leader of Lake Champlain Sea Grant. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you again.
I'm excited to be here.
And before we jump into talking about these tours, can you tell us a little bit about the Sea Grant?
Sure. So Lake Champlain Sea Grant is a National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration funded program in partnership with the University of Vermont and State University of New York at Plattsburgh. And our mission is to develop and deliver science-based information that benefits the environment and economies of the Lake Champlain Basin.
And how long have you guys been doing that?
So the Lake Champlain Sea Grant was established in 1998. Originally, New York Sea Grant was offering some education and outreach in this area, but the Lake Champlain Sea Grant became its own program as of 1998.
And you have a lot of partners in the Sea Grant as well. Can you talk about them?
We do. So one of our biggest partners is UVM Extension, and also I mentioned SUNY Plattsburgh. We also work with various organizations, nonprofits, and regional and state organizations like the Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation, the Lake Champlain Basin Program, and Watersheds United Vermont, but also many, many more.
And the last time we had you on, you were actually talking about salt brine for roadways. And so clearly the Sea Grant isn't just about Lake Champlain. Can you tell me about how it works more with the watershed in general?
Oh, sure. So I think the Lake Champlain watershed is a really important concept. So let me just say what a watershed is in general.
Absolutely.
It is the area of land that drains to a common water body. So where I live is the Lake Champlain Basin, and actually many of us in Vermont and in the Adirondacks and also in southern Quebec live within the Lake Champlain watershed. And the reason it's important for us in particular is because the land area that drains, the size of the land area that drains to Lake Champlain is really big in comparison to the lake itself. It's about 19 times the size of the lake itself. And if you compare that to the Great Lakes watersheds, those have watershed areas about 1.5 or 2 times the lake size. And so everything we do on the land really impacts water quality.
And without further ado, let's jump into these public trips you have coming up. Can you tell me about them?
Yeah, we're thrilled to have them. It's been a long time coming with waiting on the new research vessel, but we have 2 different trips that we offer. One, we focus on stories of the lake, and so we think about geologic history, indigenous history, naval history, as well as today's challenges that the lake is facing. So it's a story-based program. The other one we call Lake Champlain Live, and in that trip, we get people hands-on, being lake scientists, monitoring things like water clarity, as well as the zooplankton and the phytoplankton. So they become limnologists themselves.
And is this your first year doing it?
We have done them prior to COVID, and then we haven't done them in a number of years simply because we changed over vessels. We went from our old research vessel, the Melosira, to the new hybrid electric Marcelle Melosira. So this is the first summer we're again offering them in several years.
And you talked a little bit about how some of these trips involve kind of a scientific angle. Are those contributing to studies currently underway?
So for the most part, for the public trips, they're educational only, but we have kindergarten to 12th grade trips that go out, and those students will monitor things like water clarity and zooplankton, and there's a database that they maintain, and then the students will actually use the data to understand what's going on over time or look back to compare, for instance, water clarity to another date and see what it's like on the day that they're out, and then think about, well, why might it be different, or why might it be deeper or shallower or something like that.
And you already touched on this a little bit, but can you give us a little more detail about maybe the non-scientific angles that the cruises provide?
Sure. So everything from geology. So we have some really great places that we can cruise over to, Red Rocks or Lone Rock Point, for instance, and explain to people what happened ancient times to create these places. We also talk about the naval history. The lake used to be, or has some really fascinating stories of when this country was being formed. And we also work with Chief Don Stevens from the Nelhegan Abenaki to share indigenous creation stories of the lake and the basin, and he will be with us on the upcoming trip in August.
And you talked about students coming on as well and working with elementary students, but you also work with high schoolers as well. Can you talk about those 2 programs?
Yeah, so the kindergarten to 12th grade trips are run through what we call our Watershed Alliance program, and it is offered to youth of all ages as well as teachers. And actually this week there have been a number of teachers out learning about research that is happening on the lake, and they're working to integrate that into to have real life science in their classrooms in the coming year. So the youth that are we have a traditional program that the youth are involved with, and then we'll have this special set of engagement opportunities for the students with their teachers who've been paired with researchers from the lake.
And we've had a number of beach closures in either Burlington or St. Albans due to blue-green algae, or some people might know it cyanobacteria. Yep. Can you talk a little bit about why that matters to people in the rest of our state, more than just the Champlain area?
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to the definition of a watershed and thinking about the size of the land area that drains to Lake Champlain, and the fact that cyanobacteria blooms are driven by nutrient concentrations in the lake. When we have events like we had in the last couple of days, and there's a lot of sediment that comes into the lake, that carries with it nutrients. Phosphorus, for instance, sticks to sediment and moves. And so the cyanobacteria blooms, what we do on the land matters to the water quality. And if whatever we can do to minimize the amount of erosion or the amount of sediment that reaches the lake, that can help prevent or minimize the cyanobacteria blooms. So no matter if you're in Cabot or if you're in Rutland or if you're over in Saranac Lake, all of those communities, the water bodies there drain into Lake Champlain. So even if you're far away, what happens there matters in the lake.
And you're talking about the flooding we just had. Do you change anything about what you're doing immediately after an event like that? Or is it just kind of seeing how things are in the aftermath, business as usual?
In terms of the education programs, changing that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, we will see if there's safety risks out there. We may have to make a call on whether it's safe to be there. At the moment, the lake is starting to accept all of that incoming volume of water. I do expect to see a difference in the things that we monitor, and to expect to see in the coming days probably a cyanobacteria blooms because of the warm days and the added nutrients coming into the lake.
All right, we're almost out of time, but is there anything quickly somebody can keep in mind to help their own watershed stay healthy?
Yeah, so one of the things that I was thinking about to prepare here is wetlands, the importance of wetlands. And we hear a lot about Middlebury being protected by the Otter Creek complex of wetlands upstream. So if there are landowners in Vermont, and much of Vermont is owned by private landowners who have the ability to protect or even recreate wetlands where water can have the space to get out of the rivers and sink into the ground, but that can happen even for somebody with a smaller piece of property, maybe creating a rain garden or using a rain barrel, or even minor practices like changing the height that you mow your lawn, where you can allow the root system, if you mow your lawn no shorter than 3 inches, the roots will be longer, and then water has the more ability to sink into the ground. So whether you're somebody local or somebody with a small piece of property or a large piece of property, there's something that can be done to help slow the flow of water from reaching the lake.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And spots are going fast, but if you'd like to sign up for one of the remaining public trips on the RV Marcelle Melosira, all the information is on your screen. I believe the 2 days are for July 25th and August 2nd now. My thanks to the crew behind the scenes here at WCAX who are always making it smooth sailing. Bon voyage. I'm Jolie Whitney. Have a good one.